Are the Raptors looking to break the glass ceiling? Is this the Jackie Robinson moment for the Toronto Raptors? Are they going to become the first team in NBA history to hire a female head coach? They absolutely could. Let me tell you that. A couple years ago, I think it was a couple years ago, I talked to a friend of mine in the NBA, and Becky was still a assistant with the San Antonio Spurs, and I said, "Is someone gonna take this?" Because sports can be very male centric, kind of misogynistic. There's a lot of fans out there. If they struggle, they're gonna make it about her gender. You don't want to screw this up either, right? It's a really important thing because she can't fail. I don't need to explain the whole gender dynamics of this for you, but we've been talking about this for 10 years now. But when is this eventually going to happen? And the team that takes the shot is going to be the team that has a forward thinking mindset about this, because Becky Hammon is a hell of a coach. She is a hell of a coach. She's proven it on multiple levels. And we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about another candidate that I love. And I referenced him on the last chat, Jordi Fernandez. And, there's a lot to love about him too. And honestly, if he's hired, we are going to get somebody who knows him pretty damn well to come on and talk about him. But I think these two are exactly what Masai Ujiri is talking about. Look, I'm really firm. I would have preferred Ime. I'm pretty firm right now that I would love Jama to get a call, right? But when I look at the other coaching candidates, no one's making me really excited. Jerry Stackhouse, not exciting me. Adrian Griffin, not exciting me. Earl Watson, I'm not really for it. And there's a lot of other names that are just like, Kenny Atkinson, I can get behind Kenny Atkinson, but it's not exciting. So when Masai Ujiri says we want to respark the culture, well, you need a very special person to do that. Now, Nick Nurse was a very smart coach. Special person, debatable, right? Not exactly the type of guy who walks in and just takes your breath away, right? Not the type of person you meet and you're just like thinking about that person. Like that charisma element is very underrated for head coaches and communicators. And I think both Becky and Jordi have it in spades. So let's talk about Becky first, right? What are her credentials? Well, first of all, she's one of the greatest WNBA players, one of the greatest female players to ever play the game. Add to that, she is also a legend in terms of male circles. Men respect her tremendously and have for years. Tony Parker, when she was an assistant coach with the San Antonio Spurs, so she was one of the most prominent assistants in the NBA under her tenure with Greg Popovich. Tony Parker really took to her. He said he's like, I just love the way that she teaches the point guard position. Like it's a phenomenal way of looking at the game. She preaches ball movement. Praise the Lord, man. Praise the freaking Lord. She praises ball movement. She praises unselfishness. She preaches accountability. That's literally her entire coaching philosophy. She walks the walk. She talks the talk, right? So this past year with Las Vegas Aces, I got to watch a few games. I loved the organization. Kelsey Plum. It's just such a great team. It was such a great team to watch. And I remember watching it and thinking, I think this is more interesting to watch than the Toronto Raptors. I really like what she did with the Vegas Aces. And look, she had her pick. She's had her pick for years. She's had her pick of NBA assistant coaching jobs. She's been up for NBA head coaching jobs quite a few times. She hasn't gotten them. Okay. Again, 2 years ago when I talked to somebody about who is going to finally do it, they thought Dallas Mavericks. They're like, Mark Cuban is the guy. He's forward thinking. He could do it. If he's not going to do it, one of these younger owners, these newer owners who are coming up more millennial style owners, they thought maybe the Phoenix Suns might do it. If given how young their new owner is, right? So these are, I think, whether it happens this off season or whether it happens in 5 years, I do think at some point, the window will close. But I hope she gets a chance. She deserves it. She's earned it. Pop is not an easy coach to be an assistant under. Burns out people pretty quickly. It's very demanding. The task is very demanding. She did it. And talk to anyone in the San Antonio Spurs organization. She earned all her stripes. She was given absolutely nothing. She is a firecracker. And she's the type of person who can actually walk into a room and she can command the room. She's always been that way. That's who she was as a player. That's who she's been as a coach. That's who she was in the NBA. That's who she is in the WNBA. If she was a man, like honestly, her credentials, everything that she's done, everything that players feel about her, everything that, she would have already been a head coach like 8 years ago, 7 years ago. Popovich's coaching tree is extensive. Like it just branches on and on and on. The number of head coaches that this guy has groomed under his tutelage, and they're all kind of about the same stuff. Now, funny enough, this is a perfect segue to talk about another Popovich coaching tree disciple, and that's Jordi Fernandez. Now, how can he be a Popovich coaching disciple if he's never coached under Greg Popovich? Let me explain. So, the way I see coaching trees is it's almost like a lineage, right? And so Mike Brown was a guy who came from Popovich's coaching tree, and Jordi Fernandez comes from Mike Brown's coaching tree, just like Mike Malone comes from Mike Brown's coaching tree. And I think that this one makes a lot of sense, and I'll tell you why. So a couple of months ago, Brian Macon, Toronto, Raptors, Scotty Barnes trainer, went on Yahoo Sports and he talked about potentially the Raptors using Scotty Barnes like the Denver Nuggets used Nikola Jokic, right? We have all talked about how the Raptors can learn a few things from the Sacramento Kings. We did a video interview with one of the beat writers or one of the guys who covers the Sacramento Kings, Leo Bias, and we talked about how the Sacramento Kings culture has turned around. Well, one of the most understated and underrated parts of the entire turnaround in Sacramento, one of the most underrated parts of the player development and just genuine vibe in Denver has been assistant coach and now associate coach Jordi Fernandez. I mean, this is a guy who I was hearing about Jordi Fernandez potentially becoming an NBA head coach in 2018. Do you realize that he was 35 years old in 2018? I told you guys, hire young, man. Hire young. I'm not saying there's a bias towards young people or a bias against older people, but trust me, like Will Hardy, Jordi Fernandez, these guys are up there in terms of just basketball acumen. I'm going to tell you what I like about Jordi Fernandez. I'll tell you a little bit about him and why he would be making history, because he is Spanish born and there's never been a head coach per my understanding. I know someone mentioned James Borrego. He is not Spanish. He is Hispanic. He is born in New Mexico and his family is American Mexican, which his pedigree is impressive for someone who is just 40 years old. He has done so much work in the game of basketball. In 2006 to 2009, he was with Impact Basketball Academy, and then 2009 to 2013, he was with the Cleveland Cavaliers as a player development coach. And in 2013, he was with U19 for Spanish national team. Then he was with the Canton Charge in 2013, all the way up till 2016. And then he was with the Denver Nuggets as an assistant coach from 2016 to 2022. As you may have noticed, there's a certain, MVP that grew up around him. And I'm not saying that Jordi Fernandez is the reason for Nikola Jokic's success, but he certainly had a part in it. He's been credited for it many times, and they had a very good relationship. Mike Brown himself has mentioned numerous times that he thinks Jordi will be a head coach at some point, and he took Mike Malone has mentioned that he will be a head coach at some point. Mike Brown, the other Mike over in Sacramento, the head coach currently with Sacramento Kings. So he has Jordi was his first hire in Sacramento. He is the architect behind the defensive belt. If you guys have caught some of the vibes of the Sacramento Kings this year, where they all compete for a belt in, for defense. Sacramento is not known for its defense, but man, they have a roster void of defenders for the most part. I think their best defender might be Harrison Barnes and Davion Mitchell. Like, they don't have defenders. So the fact that they are even remotely competent and it's a miracle. Their roster is not constructed to what Jordi Fernandez would probably like to play like. So what do I like about him? He is a master communicator. Like, he reads people extremely well. This is everything I heard about him. I did phone up a friend who had covered him in Denver like about 40 minutes ago. So it was good timing. with the time difference, and he was just like master communicator, fantastic, has the command of the young players, can relate to just about anybody, walks into any room, he can talk to anybody. He can talk to someone who's 80 years old, war veteran. He'll find a way to connect and communicate with just about anybody. He holds people accountable. He holds himself accountable, and he is insanely, insanely smart. He said that this is a coach who is super committed to learning, and he will actually go in. And I mean, there was a comment on a chat. I think it was Coach Mo and I. We were talking yesterday about, has Nick Nurse ever come out after a game and said, "My bad"? Well, Jordi Fernandez has done that repeatedly. He is someone who always takes accountability for his screw ups. He will take the load off the players and say, "You know what? This was me." And if it's on them, he'll say it's on them, but he won't do it publicly. He'll go to them in private. Look, the reaction to him in the Kings locker room when he won his first game after Mike Brown, ironically, it was against Toronto, so his fate is directly tied to us. There's also hold on, let me just continue that thought. I'm going to jump around all over the place. So the vibe around him in Denver and Sacramento has been incredible. Like, the way the players have really rooted for him and championed him is pretty crazy. I really like this. And quite frankly, I listened, not only to my friend talking about him, but then after that, he got me really curious about him, right? Because I was about to make this entire video about Becky Hammon. As you can notice, like, Jordi Fernandez just been like put right there on the thumbnail. And what a poor thumbnail it was. Poor Jordi. He looks funny in that thumbnail. But I just wanted to say, like, everything I heard about him, it got me so curious. So I started watching an interview with him, and I watched this 25-minute interview with him and just got this feeling of like, okay, I see why the Raptors like him. I totally see it. Also, there's call it a connection between Masai Ujiri and Jordi Fernandez, which is that in 2020, if you may remember, if Masai Ujiri was not familiar with Jordi Fernandez before, he was. But I'm saying if he wasn't, he would be then. Because in 2020, Mike Brown coached the Nigeria men's basketball team, and guess who his top assistant was? Jordi Fernandez for Nigeria. And look, when people show you who they are, believe them. We say that all the time on this channel. This is a guy who has shown at the age of 40 that he is a master communicator. He has shown that he holds people accountable. He holds himself accountable. And he has also shown that he's a culture driver. He's someone who can innovate. He is lauded for his creativity. And I've really loved hearing that. Whenever someone mentions coaches, I'm looking for like the words that they use, like a word web, like when you, I don't know, when we do these videos. Oftentimes a video like this, we'll see as the top word in because I say so much. But if you have a video about the Raptors, and sometimes I become curious after, I'll see like, what word did I reference over and over again? Very often it's Scotty, Fred, Pascal, ball movement, selfish, whatever. What is the word that came up, and make that word bigger? That's a word web. So with Jordi Fernandez, one thing that just kept coming up was creativity, accountability, smart. I like that. Those are three qualities that I really cherish in a head coach, and I think that would be great. That would be great. Yeah, so beyond that, I think, these two, they have something of a special, call it culture shifting potential, right? Like, and that's not really something that I can say very safely about some of these other candidates, right? Like, anyone can coach basketball. If you know basketball, you can coach basketball. There are very few people who can drive a culture, right? There are very few people who can hold people accountable. There are very few people who can do it for a really long period of time, right? So you're looking for a lot of things in this head coach. You're not only looking for someone that the players will respect. You're not only looking for someone who can actually win basketball games. You're not only looking for somebody who has the respect of other people around the league so that they can actually put together a competent coaching staff, right? There's so many things at stake here. And maybe one of the biggest things holding Becky Hammon back, right, for a lot of people, will be who are her assistant coaches going to be, right? And do you know what I mean? Like, it becomes a really strange thing, and I hope it won't become that thing. And it's going to be someone's going to have to do it at some point. Like, whether it's not going to be her, it's going to be someone else. Maybe it'll be Candace Parker, someone like that. Some woman is eventually going to coach a men's pro sport, right? And at that point, I think you're going to come to an understanding of who's really woke and who's just saying they're woke, right? Because personally, as a man, I have no issue. Like I would have no issue. I'd be very honored. Like if I mean, I know she would never hire me, but if she wanted to hire me as an assistant coach, please consider me there. I'll be there early every single day. I would love to learn about basketball from Becky Hammon. That would be awesome. And I grew up like a really big fan of her. That's a very exciting opportunity. And if you can find, 6 men with the exact enthusiasm that I have right there that actually know what the hell they're doing in the NBA, then great. And if you could find 15 guys in the NBA, players who can hear that message and not, have any sort of aversion to it, then great. Let's have that. So yeah, so I think both of these guys, both of these candidates present something of a special quality. And honestly, I just everything that Masai Ujiri said at the press conference about selfishness, culture. I'm looking at coaches who have led unselfish basketball. Okay, and the Popovich coaching tree is a great place to start when you're looking for unselfish preaching coaches. The Las Vegas Aces are a very unselfish team. Okay, extremely unselfish. Ball movement, boom, boom, boom. It was amazing. It was amazing to watch. I remember watching it with my girlfriend. My girlfriend said, these guys play better than the Toronto Raptors. I was like, for real? They do. They are a better coach team than the Raptors. And that's because they were being coached by Becky Hammon. She preaches ball movement. She preaches getting off the ball. I remember hearing a story about her in 2012, 2013, where she yelled at a player for taking a shot over three defenders. Fred VanVleet, you can't do that anymore, right? I mean, that's what we've been talking about the entire time, right? So that element. And I think, whether it be one or the other, I think in both cases, Scotty's going to get something out of it. You have a young kid, 21 years old, who's an aspiring point guard. I think he is a point guard. Some of you think he's not a point guard. Fine. But you do have a guy who could benefit to learn the point guard position from someone like Becky Hammon. Absolutely. And I think he'd be open to it. He's a very open-minded person. So I think he'd be down for this for sure. But there's also the element of, well, Jordi Fernandez. He has the entire, everything that the Kings have done. You have immediate, what I call credibility when it comes to, oh, we have a super chat. My bad. Hang on. Straight up, who do you want as a head coach, but who do you think will realistically get the job? I would be happy with Jordi Fernandez. Beyond that, obviously, I would be happy with Jama. I would be cool with Becky. I would be cool with Kenny Atkinson. Those are the 4 that I think I can. Okay. It is a distraction. The Raptors, I have it on good authority that, the Raptors had a chance to sign Vince Carter the year that they won the championship, which would have been his last year. Ironically, I believe it was the year that they won the championship. They had a chance to sign Vince Carter. And, it would have been a great, remarkable storybook ending for his career. A little kumbaya. He probably would have won a ring on his way out. Can you imagine? All the win a ring for Reggie that, the Indiana Pacers went through. I think it would have been such a beautiful thing. And obviously, I'm a huge Vince Carter fan. So if you're not a Vince Carter fan, you probably have a complete opposite sentiment towards that. And one of the big reasons that it was kind of voted out, even though there were some people who pushed for it, I believe Kyle Lowry pushed for it. One of the reasons it was voted out is because of that, that it would become a constant talking point. It would become a media circus. It would be, and it's unfortunate, but I think Larry makes a point. It's true. But someone's got to do it. Like, I'm sure that Jackie Robinson, it was a media circus, but someone had to do it, right? You can't keep black people out of, baseball forever. Someone had to do it. It becomes normal. Take the plunge. Be the franchise. I'm for it. Look, if we sign Becky Hammon and every Raptor content creator is like, oh my God, why did they do this? Please know I will not be one of them. You're not going to see me do that. She's a hell of a coach. Everything else around it, that's going to be a test for society. Okay? But she's earned her stripes. She deserves a shot. I believe she deserves a shot and not an assistant coach. And I appreciate the gusto, man. Look, as someone who's chased what I want in my life, I really appreciate people who do the same. And in all honesty, she's had head coaching opportunities in the NCAA. Anyways, look, we need a culture setter. We need someone to hold people accountable. And we need somebody who preaches ball movement because Scotty's going to lose his mind and probably throw a chair through a window if you don't get a coach in here who can hold Fred and Pascal accountable. Now, I think a lot of people maybe underestimate Becky's ability to hold people accountable. She absolutely can. She's a feisty motherfucker and she will absolutely chew you out. She doesn't care if you're a man, woman, whatever. She did it plenty of times in San Antonio. Guys feared her. Like they legit feared her. So don't, man, she's short. She's short too, She's shorter than Fred VanVleet by quite a bit. But it takes a special type of human to do what she's done, man. She's broken so many barriers. So I would support her on principle alone, personally. But yeah, just in terms of like coaching acumen, I think so. Jordi Fernandez is also a teacher. I should mention that as well. I think that's such an underrated part of this. He's also had player development background. Becky hasn't, and that's kind of the dividing line for me. He had a very interesting paper that he wrote for his PhD on it was like the psychology of plays. I can't remember it, but I remember reading it like 4 years ago, and it was a fascinating exploration into yeah. I just remember thinking this guy's really smart, and this was around 2018 when he was first being named as a potential head coach to watch. And every time someone enters this list before the age of 45, I'm always all ears. Like, ooh, Will Hardy, who's that? Brad Stevens, who's that? And you look at these wonderkins and you realize, that they've managed to do something in 32, 33, 34 years that it takes most people 50. If you want, anything to do over the next 10 minutes, I seriously suggest you just go type Jordi Fernandez, go type Becky Hammon, and go listen to these two coaches talk and tell me if you feel really inspired about basketball, because I guarantee you will, right? There are a lot of qualified assistant coaches that deserve a head coaching job in the league. There are a lot of retired coaches that could probably do a better job than what Nick Nurse did last year. There are also a ton of coaches that could do a much worse job than what Nick Nurse did last year. Case in point, his lead assistant, Nate Bjorkgren, or one of his lead assistants, Nate Bjorkgren. So I did not love Nick Nurse's coaching tree, like the one that he built. Guys like Trevor Gleason, Nate Bjorkgren. I was not a fan of these guys, and whoever comes in, that's going to be a very underrated part of what they do with their coach, like with their coaches, like with their assistants, like who do they surround themselves with? Because those, and that's where, you come into, like, when you hire a great head coach, you typically end up with great assistants, great associate coach, assistant coach, development coaches. People want to be around that person. And so that first hire is very important, right? Now, I am curious, how I'm very curious to see how this is going to boil out for the Raptors if they do end up going with Becky Hammon. I think if I had to put money on it, and I would say, like, okay, like, which front office could I actually see doing this that actually has a head coaching job available? It would be the Raptors. Larry Tannenbaum, very progressive. Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, very progressive people. These are people who actually have a social pulse and a social conscience, and they would actually see the value and benefit of doing something like this, especially if they believe that she is also doubly the most qualified person for the job. So look, this is the team that showed up to, the bubble with a Black Lives Matter bus. Okay, they're the only team that did that. Literally the only team. And they were protesting a police shooting in the United States as the NBA's only non-US based team. Okay, so I'm just telling you, this is a team with a pulse and a heart, and it understands, the social and personal element and, impact element of basketball. And if they have an opportunity and she's the most qualified person, like if it's a toss up, I'm curious if they'll take on the additional, spotlight of it. But if she is by far the most qualified person that they talk to, and by far the person who has the best idea for this roster, and by far the person that they believe will do the best job, then I think they'll take, a 10% distraction in order to normalize this. I really do. Um, I just hope we get a coach in 2 weeks. Need the best candidate for a draft pick. I mean, look, what I think 99%, yes, they'll have a coach by the draft, but if they don't, it's not the end of the world. I mean, they'll make the pick. It's just not ideal, obviously. But hiring the wrong person is also not ideal. So if I had to choose, I would much rather they take, 3 months to do this. It's not going to take 3 months, guys. Don't worry. They've they thought about this. I'm sure they thought about it. Yes, they've had to recalibrate now that Ime Udoka is, he's kind of snubbed them off or whatever. And I was really hoping that they would go with Jama, but then, some people said, he doesn't want to leave California. Okay. Maybe he's already been promised the Golden State job after Steve Kerr moves up to the head office. And, that's just sort of, he will be a head coach at some point, right? So, look, whether we're talking about Jama, whether we're talking about Jordi Fernandez, whether we're talking about Becky Hammon, we're talking about very special people, right? Very special people, very special connectors, very special teachers. All of them are good teachers. All of them. All three of them. They're great teachers. They're great communicators, and they're great culture setters. So I really hope if it's not one of these three, and likely two, then I hope it's someone who has all the same qualities and all the same advantages that they bring to the table. Because honestly, I cannot imagine some of the things that happened this year and Becky not calling a timeout and just benching Fred VanVleet. And she was a point guard. She knows. She knows what he's doing, right? Yeah, same thing. Same thing with Jordi Fernandez. Like you know what the funny thing is? If I had to guess between these two coaches, who I think is tougher, I think Becky's tougher. I think they're both connectors, but I think she's tougher, man. She's tougher than most men. She's tougher than most male head coaches. So, just to anyone who has that feeling of like, oh, well, what if men like, override her or whatever, that's your own stupidity, man. Trust me. She's not about to get walked over by anybody. Who's Karen or Brad? Huh? Who's Karen? You're expecting to see? Oh man, dope. Sorry, I'm trying to read all these comments, and the chat is not making a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, Cucumber Liquor says ice tray. I'm assuming y'all watching the playoffs. Okay. Um, James says, I have great female bosses, but they have a different way leading to mixed group, no problem, but the team is all male. Who cares? Maybe she can bring in a female assistant coach. I honestly, I don't think it'll be as big a deal, but I understand that the media will make it as big a deal as humanly possible. So when Larry said like it'll be an issue with the media, that's where I was like, all right, that's a fair point. But if you're saying it's going to be an issue with the players, I doubt it. I super doubt it. I think they would be. I don't know. I would hope. I would hope. Maybe I'm naive. I would hope that they would appreciate the opportunity to do something like this. Anyways, guys, have a good one. Hit subscribe on your way out. Hit like, all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.